viewers, my name's Cara. I'm your host for Tuesdays here on The Pagan Perspective, and this week's topic comes from Rachel, who asks about buying and selling magical items and things. Rachel actually asked us a couple of different things, gave us a few different topics, so this is just one of 3 that they suggested, and they will all be in the next few months. So thank you, Rachel, for suggesting multiple things, and thank you to everyone who's been sending in suggestions. Obviously, we wouldn't have these topics without you, or without a few that we throw in from ourselves, but mostly they come from you. So if you don't know how to suggest a topic, you can put a comment in the main channel discussion page of the Pagan Perspective channel, not in a comment on an individual video because we don't always see those. So if you want to submit it as a topic, put it in the discussion page, or you can also private message the channel. Those are the 2 main ways. And we also check our Facebook page. If you have a Facebook and not a YouTube, you can do that as well. Anyway, getting into it, this week we're talking about buying and selling magical things. And the question will be in the description, as always, so that you can read how it was actually worded. But the question is about, for those of us who maybe provide goods or services within the magical realm, whether it be selling things or offering divination, things like that, there is a question about selling. And then for all of us as consumers, there are a couple of different questions about buying in this realm and kind of how we navigate that. So firstly, I do have an Etsy shop. I am a shopkeep. I'm a shop owner. I'm a small business owner. I have an Etsy shop. I make jewelry. I make, just a bunch of little stuff. I haven't done a lot of different things in a while. I used to paint pendants. I'm getting back into crocheting a lot recently, so a lot of the stuff that's going to be going up on my Etsy soon is going to be crocheted items. I do a lot of sewing, things like that. I'm saying a lot. But yeah, there's nothing on my Etsy shop right now because it all expired or sold. So you can actually look in the previous sales link to see things that I've done in the past. I do custom work, so you can always ask for something if you know I've done it before. But I'm enjoying having a blank slate right now so that I can take a day and post a bunch of stuff and get it all up there and kind of have everything be new. So I have been doing this for a while, so I can speak to the selling question. The selling question is, how do you set prices for your items? And this is actually something that is big in the handmade community and, small business selling community in general, is how do we set prices? And there are multiple articles about it. If you Google it, it'll probably come up with several articles about the topic. And I have read numerous articles about the topic because I'm always double checking to make sure that I'm doing it right, that I'm not selling myself too short or anything like that. Because biggest thing that happens is that we tend to undercharge for things. So there's really, we worry about people overcharging us for things, but because of that, I feel like a lot of sellers tend to undercharge for their items, and I do too, and I know I do in certain senses, but so I try not to. So if you look up the articles will say things like, take into account your materials, of course. You want to make sure that you're covering how much you are spending on the materials that you need to create the thing. Take into account the amount of time that you're spending on it, and you can either come up with a flat rate that you would like to pay yourself per hour, or whatever you think is fair, just coming up with something that represents the time that you have put into it. Also take into consideration any years of experience that you have taken developing a specific skill that is a skill that is necessary for what you're making that other people don't have. And if you've taken any classes on the subject, that's not something that really would get factored into each specific item, because eventually the cost of one class will get paid for, right? But just taking that into account in how much you decide to pay yourself. What is your time and your experience in creating this worth to you? And then also the other thing that the articles always recommend, which is number 1, something that I do all the time when I'm browsing on Etsy, when I'm at a Renaissance festival or medieval fair, when I'm at a pagan pride event, when I am at any kind of craft and clutter sale, I am always checking what other people are charging, because you want to make sure that you're charging in the general area for the item. You don't want to be drastically overcharging for it, obviously, because that's not going to make people want to buy from you, but you also don't want to be drastically undercharging for it because that kind of steps on the toes of the other people who are selling a similar product. You don't want to be undercutting them. That's a huge thing. So the way that I set my prices is by taking into account my materials. I try to take into account the hours that I put into things, and taking into account if you're starting a new skill, it's going to take you a little bit longer to develop it. Anytime that I come up with a new design or something new that I want to do, it takes me a little bit longer than if I'm making another one of a style that I'm very used to, that I've been making for years. I can make those things a little more quickly. Or just if I've set it down for a while and I haven't made one in a while and I go back to it, it takes me a little longer. But anyway, so you basically work out how long it takes you, how long you spend on something. And I don't always include enough for that, probably, because if I want to pay myself $10 an hour for my time, which is what I make at my part-time job in the real world, the mundane world, we'll say, I would have to charge at least $10 for anything that took me at least an hour to make. And then that's not including the materials that go into it and everything like that. And sometimes it's a little item and I don't feel like $10 is fair for it. So oftentimes the hours of what I spend are what I'm not taking into account, honestly, for me. And I'm aware of that. And then I also, like I said, always check what other people are charging. If it's something brand new that I've never offered before, I'll do a search on Etsy and see the range of what people are charging for it. And then I'm also going to take into account, okay, this shop is charging this much for it, but they're not using real crystals. They're using rainbow colored Swarovski crystals or something like that. Or this shop is charging this, but they're using completely sterling silver coated wires, sterling silver earring posts, whatever. So they're charging more because their materials cost them more. I don't use sterling silver. I use nickel-free hypoallergenic. So just kind of, looking at that and taking into account what it is for me, but kind of trying to see what is the range. And then also looking at, is it selling at that price? And I was just at Pagan Pride recently and someone had crocheted bags, which is something that I've been doing a lot of. I have a few here actually that aren't done. So I've been making a lot of these little pouches, and these are tiny ones, but I had a price in mind for what I was going to do for them, and this type of yarn is different from the other type of yarn that I use. One's more expensive than the other, so you have to take all of that into account. I saw crocheted things at someone's booth at Pagan Pride, and I was like, oh, I have to go see how much they're charging for it, and for a slightly bigger bag, they were charging slightly more, and I was like, oh, good, that's what I had in mind. So that's just very encouraging to me that, okay, I'm in the right range. And the other thing that I do is if I have a few items that have been selling consistently at a certain price and I really feel good about that price for that item, then when I make a new item, I will sort of put that on a spectrum in my mind as to, is this new item that I'm creating more or less expensive than this item I've been making for a while that I'm really comfortable with the price of. And so I might go $2 more or $2 less depending on the materials or the time or whatever it is. And sometimes what I've found in the past is that when I figure that out, I'm like, no, this new item should really be $20, for example, which means the thing I've been selling at $20 really should be $25. So I'll change it and see if it still sells at that price. Generally, like I said, I tend to undersell myself. So I know that about myself, but there are a few items that I'm really comfortable with the price range that I have set and the way that it compares to other people's. So didn't expect to actually talk for that long on that subject. So I hope that helped you. I know that a couple other people on the channel are Etsy sellers. I'm sure Rich talked about that in his video. I haven't actually watched it yet, but I know he does some Etsy selling. I know that Megan does some small business stuff, and I'm not actually sure about anyone else off the top of my head. So this will be an interesting week. Anyway, moving on to the other side of it, as a consumer, as a buyer, this is something that we can all relate to, hopefully, if you have any kind of money and have ever bought anything ever. The questions are, how do you decide if a price is fair or reasonable for you to pay? And then how much does the price matter relative to other factors such as material sources or the seller's reputation or reviews? So the first thing, how do I decide if a price is fair or reasonable? For me, if you've ever been with me at an event of any kind where they're selling things, you'll know that I do not tend to buy things that are the kinds of things that I make. Number one, I'm not going to want to buy the exact thing if I could just make it for myself, obviously. But I tend to not buy things of the similar type, especially when they're overcharging for them, because I internally know how much those materials cost, I can kind of add it up in my head and say, okay, this is within the general price range. Like, even if they charge a little bit more than I do, I figure, okay, maybe it's sterling instead of, whatever. If they're really kind of overblown prices, I'll know that because I know what other people charge for it, and I know how much it tends to cost to make and how long it takes. So I'm very hesitant usually to buy anything that is within the realm of something that I make because I know what it's worth. However, there are some things like pottery and ceramics that I know what goes into it because I've taken a ceramics course and I've actually tried to do it, and it's incredible. And once you do something like that and you learn even the basics of what has to go into that, you can start to look at a handmade item that someone is selling and see all of the different elements and then know, like, okay, they had to do this step and then this and this, and then they had to do this layering and this carving and this, oh my gosh. And then you start to see, like, wow, like all of the skill and talent and time and wonderfulness that went into that. And when you know that, you can appreciate it so much more, and you understand why it costs a little bit more and you're very willing to pay that much for it. So the way that I determine if a price is fair or reasonable is if I know anything whatsoever about it, I use that information to my advantage and say, do I think that this is worth it? Knowing what goes into this, knowing what the materials are, whatever. And then if it's something that I have no idea how to do, one, I tend to respect it even more because I'm just like, oh, I've never even attempted that yet, like glass blowing, any like hand blown glass. I've watched people do it. I have a lot of friends who do it, and I've never even been able to attempt it myself, but I feel like that stuff is so cool. But for me, it's not worth it for me to pay a bunch of money for like a decorative hand blown glass thing because it's just a thing. I don't like to have a lot of things that are just gonna hang around and kind of collect dust and be pretty. So for me, if it's for a gift or something, it might be worth it, but that's not the kind of thing that I tend to buy. So it's very personal. Some people are really into those things and are very willing to pay X amount of money, and some people it's just not our thing. So for us, that's not worth it. And one really specific example of something that I do buy, something that I do continue to buy even this far into my path are crystals. I still really like crystals. If you're someone who likes crystals, you can never have enough. There's always more. You tend to maybe want multiple of the same kind of crystal. So I have recently gotten back into buying crystals. And I have several friends in the crystal supply arena. Like, I have the people that I buy all my crystals from at the medieval fair that I make my chakra jewelry out of. It comes from their mine. I know those people. I know where their stuff comes from. And I know their prices. And I think they have pretty fair prices because they're not overly expensive for me. And so then when they do have a really high price tag on an item, I know that I can trust that that item is higher quality. Perfect example here. There's those friends, and then there's also witchy shops like the Dragon's Mantle in Akron, Ohio, and the Spirit Apothecary in Bedford, Ohio. They both sell crystals as well, and I have been to both of those places and purchased crystals from them. So those three kind of like main things, and then anything that I look at on Etsy, any suppliers online, I have a general idea of how much certain crystals tend to cost. Raw versus tumbled, a quartz versus an amazonite versus, some intricate variety that you don't see very often, whatever. I have a basic idea going on in my head, right? So I was at the Ohio Renaissance Festival, and I went to some booth that wasn't a crystal selling booth at all, but they had some crystals and things, and I found a piece that I really liked. I liked the energy of it. It was a little tiny, tumbled piece of crystal. And I asked them, how much do you want for this? And the woman told me, she wasn't sure. First of all, they weren't priced. Because they were supposed to be priced to wrap. And I said, I don't want it wrapped because I can wrap it myself. I just want to know how much you want for the stone. And she was like, $10. And I put it right back because this was a little small, tumbled labradorite. Anyone who's purchased a labradorite before, I'm sure you're rolling your eyes right now because you know. A tiny labradorite that didn't even have a lot of fire in it. Labradorite is a stone that has kind of an iridescent quality to it in the light. It has those really flashy bits in it, kind of like an iridescent moonstone or an opal, and it's so pretty when you get a good piece. I have a few pieces that have some really nice flamey bits. I call it fire. I think that's what they call it in opals, so that's what I call it in labradorite. But anyway, didn't have a lot of fire to it. It just had a really nice energy to it, so I liked it. But it wasn't at all like a very beautiful piece or anything. It was just a little thing. She wanted $10 for it. I was like, no, because I know that anywhere else that I would go, I don't think they would charge me more than $2 or $3 for that. $10 is maybe what you would pay if it were wrapped in wire and like on a necklace and everything. I might charge $10 for that. If I wrapped a stone for you and you wanted it, you know, done up real pretty or something, $10 or $15, sure. But not for just the stone. And to double check, I went to my crystal purveyor friends across the fair, like on the other side of the same event, and they were charging $1 a piece for small, tumbled labradorites, some of which had more fire and more brilliance than this little thing. So, yeah, if you know things like that, like that you can get it for $1 somewhere else and that most other places are going to charge $1, $2, $3, you know, it's not just that, oh, that one shop is selling it for really, really, really cheap, but everybody else would be charging $10. No. If everyone's charging $1 to $3 for it and someone wants 10, not worth it. Not even with the amount of good energy that I was getting from it. Like, just, nah. How much does price matter relative to material sources or seller reputation? I touched a little bit on that when talking about, like, you know, is it sterling versus nickel-free? Is it, you know, solid versus plated? Is it tumbled versus raw, crystal, whatever? But also, that's also getting into, you know, is it local versus from across the world kind of thing? Because on Etsy, you can get a lot of things, at least my supplies, talking about my kind of supplies, crystals and things like that. You can find some of them really, really cheap if they're coming from China. And you might be able to find the same thing for a couple dollars more coming from elsewhere in the United States. Sometimes your budget limits you, sometimes your time limit limits you, because things will be cheaper, but the shipping will be more expensive and it'll take a lot longer to get it from China, as opposed to the shipping being less expensive and you're getting it from someone else in the United States if you get it locally. So the item might cost a little bit more, but your shipping is less and you get it faster, is what I'm trying to say. So it just kind of depends on what you're looking for. I've sold a couple of things to the UK. My mom has sold some things to Australia. I think I've sold some things to Australia. Yes, I have. Obviously, I have. I just remembered a few specific people. Hi, guys, if you're watching. People who have my necklaces and things. I used to keep a map of all the places that my things have gone. But anyway, so you want to keep that kind of thing in mind too. Where is it coming from? And then seller reputation. When I'm shopping online, like on Etsy or something like that, I don't tend to look at the reviews or the seller reputation. If they have what I want, I tend to find shops that I really like and I go back to them. So I kind of build a rapport with them and I like to support the same people if possible. And then if they have everything that I want, I won't even look for another shop until I need something that they don't have. And that's happened a couple of times. Some of my favorite suppliers have stopped selling what I needed and I've had to find new ones. But I am pretty loyal to specific places if I can be, if they continue to have what I want. And always, 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 for me, I am always more willing to support a friend than a stranger. And strangers are friends that you just haven't met yet, yada yada, some people like to say. But, you know, a couple of my friends are Etsy sellers. I met some people when I went to Witch Camp. I met some people there who do crafting stuff, and so we would trade things. Like if they made jewelry, I also make jewelry. They picked out a piece of mine that they liked. I picked out a piece of theirs that I liked, and we traded. Instead of paying, we just made sure, like, okay, these are comparable in price range. Let's just trade. So that's cool. And I have several friends who make jewelry and things like that, and it's a different style than what I make. And even if I might not want to buy it, I'm happy to send people their way. Like if I meet someone who I know, like, oh, you would love my friend's style, go check out her shop. Totally. So I am much more willing to pay a little bit more to support people that I know because I want to support them than just, I need this item and I need it in this budget, blah, 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 blah. So, perfect example of this, I went to Dayton Pagan Pride this past weekend. I'm going to be uploading the vlog on my channel today as well, so you can go and check that out. I met Kellyanna there, and she was selling some merch. And I know that CDs in general, like if you go to Walmart, most CDs Oh my gosh, I haven't bought CDs from like Walmart in forever, but when I was younger I did, and CDs are about $18 to $20. So when Kellyanna said her albums are 18 for all of these or 20 for this album, you're like, okay, yeah, that's a normal price for a CD. Cool. And I also got a mug from her, and she told me how much it was, and I was like, that's a normal price for a mug. Okay, cool. And I was like, I don't really have a lot of money to spend, but I kind of want to get one of the albums and I want to get the mug, and do I want to spend this much money? For Kellyanna, yes, because someone that I want to support, right? So when I first met S.J. Tucker, I bought some things from her. When I, just, you get it. So that's always more worth it to me. I did not expect to be rambling for this long about buying and selling magical things, so I'm going to wrap this up. Let me just take 1 second to think if there's anything else I really want to say about it. Oh yes, I'm going to tell you a secret that I learned recently, and I don't think it's a huge secret because I was just talking to Patty Wigington about it at Dayton Pagan Pride as well. So, and it's a secret that she also squashes. I learned recently that witchy shops tend to be set up to cater to people within the first few years of their practice. So they tend to have a lot of items for beginners, things that you might want when you're starting out. And they cater to that, and they don't have a lot of stuff for like advanced things, I guess. I don't know. They have a lot of basic stuff. See, I don't even know if this is true, but I heard this. That the reason they do that is because those are the years when a lot of people, if they're learning on their own or they're learning from the internet or whatever, that's when you think you need all this stuff. And then as you get a little bit more advanced in your practice and you've been practicing for longer, you realize that you don't need stuff anymore, so you stop going to witchy shops and you stop buying stuff. So they cater to the people who think that they need all the stuff. So I'm going to caution you right now, if you are in the starting period of your path, just think about whether you really need the things that you're going to spend the money on, especially if it does seem a little bit pricey, because you never know who is just trying to take advantage of the fact that, you want the big shiny thing. And some people are about the shiny things, and that's your deal, and that's totally cool. I've done a video on my personal channel about why I didn't buy my tools starting out. But I'm here to tell you, someone told me that the other day, and I said, like most of the shops I go to just have a lot of candles, a lot of incense, a lot of crystals. Yeah, they have books. Yeah, they have, some other random things. I've gotten a singing bowl from a shop recently. So I feel like they have a lot of stuff that applies to anyone, anywhere on their path. So I'm not 100% sure on that, but it's worth a caution. If you're starting out in your path, don't spend a lot of money. Give it some time, get to the point where you really know what you want to do and you know what you want to spend the money on and what's going to be worth it to you, and then do that. Like I said, I've been still buying a lot of crystals. I don't tend to buy candles from shops like that because you can use any old candle. Dollar stores are great for that. I have gotten so many things at garage sales and antique stores, resale shops. Oh my gosh, like craziness. But I do still go to witchy shops and Etsy for my crystal supplies for my jewelry, for crystals for working with. And I got a singing bowl recently, like I said. I got a charcoal incense burner holder thing, because I have a lot of resin that I haven't been burning and I didn't have the appropriate equipment to burn it on. Like, yeah, I could have just burned it in the bottom of my cauldron, but I wanted to get a fancy thing, and that was worth it to me. It was like $8, and it was from a shop that I love and support. Go visit Cara at the Dragon's Mantle in Akron, Ohio. So yeah, that's just, okay. That's all I have to say. I hope that's helpful for you. I hope you're enjoying October so far. I'm super energetic today and I don't really know why, so I'm gonna go and edit this and then check out my personal channel to see my Dayton Pagan Pride video. I also still have to upload my Cleveland Pagan Pride video and the video from the first weekend that I went to the Ohio Renaissance Festival, and I'm gonna be going again this upcoming weekend. So if you're gonna be at the Ohio Renaissance Festival this upcoming weekend, I might see you. And yeah, keep an eye on my Etsy shop, which is CuteWitch772, for stuff in the future. And if anyone else on the collab mentions anything that they're doing, think about supporting them too. We love you guys. I'll see you next time. Thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to be awesome, blessed be, and goodbye.